Rhaenyra did not only lose a son. She may have lost the last person who could contradict her and still sound like love. That matters more than another revenge speech because Jace occupied a very rare political position. He was heir, son, symbol, critic, and proof that Team Black still had a future beyond one greeting queen. Now the court can comfort Rhaenyra, fear Rhaenyra, manipulate Rhaenyra, or obey Rhaenyra. But who can challenge her with the same emotional authority Jace had?
Maybe nobody.
And that is how grief stops being private and starts becoming government policy. The fresh rating story is useful, but not because it proves the fandom is abandoning the show. Deadline reports about 21.5 million viewers worldwide in the first 3 days, roughly 8% below the season 2 premiere. That is a dip, not a funeral. The better question is what kind of conversation the show now has to survive. A spectacle premiere can pull people back in. Episode 2 has to prove the spectacle changed the characters. If Jace's death becomes only a sad event, retention may soften. If it becomes a machine that starts breaking Team Black from the inside, the week-to-week argument gets much stronger. Jace was not always right. Locking Rhaenyra away is politically radioactive, even if the motive is protection. But that is exactly why his death is so dangerous. He was one of the few people close enough to Rhaenyra to make a terrible decision for her and still force a real conversation afterward. A random lord doing that becomes a traitor. Daemon doing that becomes Daemon, which is basically its own felony category. Jace doing it becomes family, succession, and strategy tabled together. Without him, the next person who tries to restrain Rhaenyra may not be heard as love. They may be heard as control. Then there is the Sheepstealer problem. If the show has effectively moved Nettles' dragon function onto Rhaena, that is not a small substitution. Nettles in Fire and Blood challenges Targaryen blood mythology from the outside. Rhaena challenges the family from the inside. That difference matters because the premiere places Rhaena and Sheepstealer near the chaos of Jace's death. The show has not yet proved every future consequence of that choice, so we should keep the language conditional. But if this is the replacement, the conflict becomes more intimate. It is no longer just an outsider changing Daemon's story. It may be family grief looking for a face. Episode 2 airs June 28th, and it has one job: do not let grief become background noise. The first council after Jace should tell us almost everything. Who speaks first? Who avoids saying Rhaenyra's name? Who turns the death into permission for revenge? Who tries to slow Rhaenyra down and immediately regrets having a mouth? The strongest version of the next episode is not Rhaenyra becoming angry. Of course she is angry. The stronger version is watching everyone around her decide which version of her anger is useful. That is where tragedy starts to look like strategy. There is a counter-argument. Maybe losing Jace does not make Rhaenyra worse. Maybe it finally removes the hesitation that has made Team Black feel slow, divided, and weirdly polite for people fighting a dragon war. A harder queen may be more effective for a while. That is the dangerous part. The first ruthless decision after a tragedy can feel morally clarifying. The audience may even cheer it. But the question is not whether anger can produce one correct move. It can. The question is whether Rhaenyra will still tolerate the person who says the second angry move is wrong. My prediction is simple. The key power in Team Black is about to become access. Not dragons. Not ships. Access. The person who reaches Rhaenyra first after the loss may shape what the loss means. The person who gives her certainty may become more dangerous than the person who gives her bad news. And if nobody can say no without sounding like another jailer at the door, Jace's death will have done something worse than remove an heir. It will have removed the emotional break from a queen who now has every reason to call the break betrayal. So, before episode 2, the real question is not whether Rhaenyra gets revenge. It is whether anyone left can still tell her no and survive being right.